Welcome to How to Be the Difference with your hosts, Joanna and Paul. A podcast for the career you want, or maybe just that push you need. If you want to know what your dream career looks like, join us to get inspiration from industry experts that will make that dream career a reality.
Hello and welcome to How to Be the Difference with your host, Joanna Molina.
I'm Paul Linsky.
How are you, Paul? What's new?
I'm very good. Nothing at all is new, Joanna. I'm still in my apartment here in Ireland. How are you doing?
I'm very excited. I'm actually planning a trip finally to the UK. So we're, at least planning. So maybe the next episodes, we will be in the same time zone.
Yeah, if we could still travel, 40 minutes away from London. That's where I am now, on a plane in Dublin.
Oh, I wish I can see you there in person, Paul.
That sounds very exciting, though.
So, Paul, today we are going to be speaking about engineering, which is a really, really cool topic. And just before recording, you were mentioning something about a series you're watching?
Yeah, not a series I've been watching, a series I've watched twice, full way through. So the Netflix series, I'm sure people have heard of it, which is Drive to Survive. And it's F1. And I thought it would be like, I didn't know what it was actually going into it, but there's so much drama, just drama in it. Like, it's for everybody. Like, if you like drama and stuff, it's like a reality show following them around. But the level of just excitement, the engineering, that's basically what we're talking about today. But the engineering in the cars, you want to try and make them as quick as possible. It's very top of the sport, the money in it, the speeds they go. It's incredible. And I don't need to, I'm sure everybody's seen it already. Have you seen it, Joanna?
I haven't seen it, but I watched recently My Next Guest. That's on Netflix, I believe. And I really enjoyed the interview to Lewis Hamilton. I'm going to watch it, though, because it's on my bucket list to drive a Formula Uno car one day, definitely. I'm such a passionate driver. Did I tell you, Paul, that I drove all South America?
Oh,
3 months.
Really? In a car or on a motorbike?
In a car. I did some mechanic classes with my father before that trip, which was for 3 months. So that's a little bit of engineering there as well.
Definitely. And I know our guest today gets into it. Like, you put me to shame. I don't even have don't have a full driver's license, but I have drove around Asia on a motorbike.
Nice.
That was pretty fun. I didn't repair it, though. I just got there from motorbikes. But anyway, our guest today is an incredible engineer, and he is also there's another thing that he's quite famous for, I think, because I've heard of him before we did this interview, and I didn't realize you were so close with him, Joanna. And I was reading an article last year at the very start of the pandemic about a company that was trying to make a ventilator that everybody in the world could use when there was a world shortage of ventilators in hospitals, and an open source kind of idea came out. I think it was in Forbes and in different places. And it turns out it's our guest today.
Absolutely. He's one of my heroes for sure.
Amazing. So let's get into the podcast and introduce our guest.
Excellent. So today we have Mauricio Toro. Mauricio is a mechanical engineer with a master's in motorsport engineering and management. His career has been split between Colombia, France, and the US. Mauricio is a serial entrepreneur whom I met about 9 years ago when I first joined the National Association of Entrepreneurs in Colombia and the El Futuro. We were both part of the board back then. And let me tell you what I admire the most about Mauricio. He makes everything and anything that you might think possible. His superpower is being able to put together high-performance teams to go from concept to reality. To put it in an example, there was a very famous series in the 80s, which a lot of you probably don't remember, but it was called MacGyver. And that is Mauricio to me. He transforms what can look like a few pieces of metal or just any material into magical devices that can save lives. And his work actually has saved hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives. Mauricio, I'm super excited to have you here with us today. Where in the world are you and how have you been?
Hi, Joanna. Great to see you again. You reminded me of those days when we were trying to kick off the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Colombia and how much everything has changed so far. Today, I am in Florida. TECHFIT Digital Surgery, our company, moved the headquarters to Florida a couple of years ago, and I am here leading our global expansion for medical devices.
Amazing, Mauricio. Thanks so much as well for joining us. And would you be able to tell us a little bit of your backstory? How, like, what did you do in college? How did you end up there in Florida?
That is very funny because I think things tend to go full circle. So I started mechanical engineering in TECHFIT University in Medellin. Before I went to school, I wanted to be a race car driver, and I started racing in go-karts. And very soon I realized I didn't have the budget or the talent to get anywhere in racing, especially the talent. So I decided but I realized that I was very good at tweaking the carts and making changes that made other drivers go faster more than myself. But I was very keen on the mechanical aspect, so I started studying mechanical engineering. And I think my passion for racing was very good because I managed to turn every concept I learned in school and apply it to my racing kart. So I was getting a practical aspect of everything I learned. Then when I was starting third year of mechanical engineering in TECHFIT, I got a scholarship to finish to get a double diploma in France in the École Nationale d'Ingénieurs de Metz. Metz is a city close to Strasbourg and close to Luxembourg. So I moved to France. I had to learn French in 6 months. I didn't know French, but I had to get into an intensive French course to be at the level to get there and study in France. I graduated in France, stayed in France for a while, then decided I wanted to pursue a career in motorsport. So I enrolled in a Master's of Motorsport Engineering and Management in Cranfield University in the UK. I finished my Master's and worked there in several roles in junior racing. So I would say Formula Ford, which was the entry-level single-seater series, to Formula 3 as a race engineer, data engineer, aerodynamicist. And then I decided to start my own business. And because starting on your own business is always easier in the country where you're from, I moved to Colombia to start my first startup, which is called Concept to Reality, C2R. And the main driver behind this is I realized that, and the motorsport world is very good at that because it's no nonsense. There is very little money. Even though it seems that there's a lot of money, there is actually very little money to waste in motorsport. So every dollar or every pound you get, you have to use it to make the car go faster. And the innovation processes are very well focused. So what we did at C2R was try to execute innovation with a motorsport mindset. And I stumbled into my current career because one of our customers at C2R was Industrias Médicas San Pedro, which was a medical device company in Colombia. And we started working as consultants with them to streamline their innovation process. And then we were given the opportunity to become partners, and that soon became my full-time career to use the motorsport mentality to develop medical devices. We have done many developments. We have several patents. Our implants help about 70,000 people every year. And we have been growing and developing ever since on that front.
What an amazing journey, and I know we've got so much questions, but I suppose I'll just take you back a second. And how did you get that original practical experience? And I suppose we were just speaking before we came on here, and we're talking about Drive to Survive, which I think everybody is watching on Netflix. And how did that practical experience come about?
Well, basically, it was tinkering in my garage. I think there's just being a maker at heart. Engineering school particularly, is there is a very big gap between the differential equations and all that you learn, how to program a finite element analysis code and all of the mathematical principles behind the engineering, and then the practical aspect of actually getting things done. And I think my ability has grown in bridging that gap and actually making things done, not only what I can do myself, but also inspiring people to put engineering principle to work. And I think it all started in my garage, and I have to thank my father for that. When I was in school, in middle school, and I wanted to start racing karts, racing is an expensive sport. So usually what people do is they hire a mechanic or sign with a team that will put the car on the track for them. My dad told me, I'll pay for a mechanic to teach you how to do the mechanics, and we will do the mechanics on the go-karts ourselves. So when everybody was going to quinceañera parties in Colombia, I was staying up at night making my go-kart ready to go to the track. And learning, putting in all the hours of mechanical experience of seeing how an engine works, how a piston works, how do you fix it when it's broken, how the steering works, how to tune the chassis to make it stiffer or softer depending on the track. And all of that I learned empirically. And then when I got the theoretical knowledge, it just boosted my empirical knowledge. But it was just working in my garage with my father and making the kart go faster.
Mauricio, that is really inspirational, going from theory to practice. Funny enough, just to share a little bit, I did also a mechanical course with my dad, preparing for a trip in South America. So I know everything about carburetors inside out. Not that it's super helpful with new cars now, but I want to fast forward in your career, Mauro. Let's rewind to last year. So as the pandemic started, you came up with an idea of creating an open source ventilator. And I remember hearing from our friends in common in Colombia about this crazy idea, and then just a few weeks later becoming a reality. Please tell us, how was that process? How did you come up with the idea of building an open source ventilator, and why open source?
Okay, so this is crazy. Because it is the power of virality now. When the pandemic started getting bad, I had to travel to Colombia for a shareholders meeting of our company, and I had to cancel the trip. I started looking at data from everywhere. I had just been in a medical conference, and people were talking about COVID, and we sat down. We said, okay, this is happening. This is going to be something that is going to hit the world hard. I think this pandemic is already out of control. And once you get to several countries with domestic transmission, there is basically nothing there. The only way out is through. So we're gonna need to survive this ordeal. How can we use our knowledge and our experience to do something about it? And the first thing, being in the medical device industry, the first thing that came to mind was, okay, this is a respiratory virus. It needs mechanical ventilation, and we don't have any mechanical ventilators available in the market. Even if we had infinite money, they would be impossible to buy. We're talking 1 year ago. So we said, okay, let's create a crisis ventilator. Let's do the best we can and create something for this pandemic. And I started sharing with people just openly. Actually, Formula One teams have helped and everything, because on LinkedIn, some Formula One engineers saw that I was posting about what we were trying to do in Colombia. And we launched an initiative, and it started gaining traction. And it first started with us trying to create a small prototype. Then we started finding support from universities, support from the Colombian innovation ecosystem. And in the end, we said, okay, this is our goal as a healthcare company is to profit from health, not from sickness. And we want to do what we can to make people better. And so understanding that when countries are in a state of crisis, trying to charge for the technologies you develop in crisis. For us, it hit us as a little bit of a moral dilemma of choosing profits over. So we decided to launch an open source initiative, and adding to that, we decided that we wanted to have several design initiatives, and this is and this comes from racing as well. In racing, you have 10 designs for a front wing or a rear wing. Then you test them in the computer in the CFD, and you narrow it down to 3. And then you take those 3 to the wind tunnel and you build 2, and then you go for a test on the car with those 2 and you choose the best one. But you always start with a plurality of ideas, because you want it to converge and you want to mitigate the technological risk. So we knew the challenge we were undertaking had never been undertaken in the country. So we started turning it into 3 initiatives, and we decided we wanted the private sector to fund it. So we wanted to raise the money from the private sector and leave the government to acquire proven, to use their ventilation resources, not to buy experimental devices from an open source initiative in Colombia, but to use that money to buy certified, to try to find certified real world ventilators. And we were able to find private funding for the initiative. We created 3 prototypes. We have built about 350 ventilators to date, which are delivered in hospitals dealing with the pandemic peaks as they come and go across the country of Colombia. We got an emergency use approval, and the emergency use approval states that we are only used when the ventilators run out. Luckily, the government has done a good job, and that situation has been rare, but we have created a safety net for the Colombian health system for the ventilators, and making them open source. We have finished also clinical trials. We have documented them, submitted them to the regulatory authority, and the result from those trials is also going to be open source. And any startup in Colombia or anywhere in the world that wants to tackle the mechanical ventilation problem will be able to tackle it using at least a base technology that has been proven and tested in the clinical setting. And the other thing that we wanted, thinking beyond the pandemic, was to use this to dynamize the health technology ecosystem in Colombia, and particularly in Medellin. It goes beyond just being a good citizen. It's about leaving the cities or the village or the ecosystem, helping it grow, not only taking from it, but also contributing so your ecosystem grows. And we think with this, we are contributing to the Medellin ecosystem, get more visibility, and globally showcase some of the capabilities that we have, which starting in Medellin and now moving our company to the US and interacting with some of the great health leaders like Mayo Clinic and all the other companies we interact with. One thing that I have realized is we have a great amount of talent, a great amount of world-class talent that is not getting the visibility and the opportunities that they could get. So this initiative ended up being a very serendipitous thing, but in the end, it started pointing to our purpose, which is generating technology and growing the ecosystems where we participate. And all the partners, the universities, the companies that were a part of it, the researchers from the universities, the way we cross-fed off each other, and the 3 prototypes ended up completing the clinical trials. It's a great experience.
Wow, more than a great experience, Mauricio. I just have to thank you. I just have to thank you for all that work, because it has really saved a lot of lives. And you make it sound like seamless, but what were those main challenges? What are those skills that you have and the people that made this happen has to make something go from an idea to reality in such a short period of time?
That is very interesting. Because that lately, and based on the pandemic, I have had many thoughts about this. And I think the most important thing is humanity has become very risk averse. And being risk averse means we want every project, every investment we make to be profitable. And we want every innovation project and every product development project that we undertake to work. And we expect every medical treatment to heal us, and we expect everything to be 100% guaranteed. But I think this virus has showed us something that in my heart of hearts and in everyone's heart of hearts we already know, is that is not possible. Life has a lot of uncertainty and a lot of challenges. And I think the key is to, instead of trying to avoid risk, is trying to understand it and manage it. So I think the biggest thing that has allowed us, and I grew in my professional background comes from a high risk environment. In racing, risk is the day-to-day. The drivers take risks when they get in the cars. The pit crew take risks when they work on the car every moment. The engineers take risks, not only the risks of their technology not working, but also the risk of something they did, making something break in the car and getting someone hurt. It's a risk that you have to live with if you work in the racing industry. So you start developing ways to mitigate, but also to cope with that risk and increase your risk threshold. I think especially in the InspiraMed initiative, I think it was just taking the risk of saying we are going to do this and making it public, and starting to bring in other people who were willing to take that risk and inspiring people to take the chance. And in real life as well, it's just trying to inspire our customers, our team, everybody who touches us to just take that idea and make it into a prototype. We can help you, but we'll be a part of your taking the risk. But just make that something tangible. If you dream of a product, unless you make it, you're never going to know if it works. So make it. And I think that's been the key for us. Just instead of thinking of trying to have 100% risk elimination, understanding that through prototyping and through making things tangible is the only real way to understand if your idea will work or not.
That's brilliant, Mauricio. And I was just thinking as well, so a lot of people will be listening to this and they might be interested in a career in engineering. I think about if it's best for them. What skills do you require to break into and succeed with an engineering career?
Okay, so this is going to be counterintuitive because throughout my whole academic life, I haven't been very good at math. So people will always say engineering is math, and engineering is only math if you want to learn it by memory and understand the theory. But engineering is actually about understanding the underlying concepts, and the concepts are always physical, not mathematical. Mathematics is just a way we have learned to describe the physical world. But I think the key in engineering is to have an ability to understand the world we live in, and have a practical ability in tinkering and understanding how to transform all the theory that you get in school into a practical real life object or real life creation, or using it to solve a real life problem. One of my professors in the UK always say an engineer is the person who can say for a penny what any fool can do for 10 pounds. So it's a matter of understanding a problem and being a problem solver, and try to get as much of experience as you can solving technical problems, because a lot of it is not theoretical, it's pattern recognition. So if you have a problem in a production line for shampoos, I am sure if you have been curious and you have seen production lines for automobiles, the solution is probably going to be there, and it's going to be very evident. But because specific industry sectors are very narrow focused, they don't see the solutions that have worked in other sectors. And just even in medicine, you see things that work in orthopedics that haven't been tried in dental, that are just a quick carryover. So it's just being very curious and being in a constant quest to understand how things work and how things change, how things are used to change our reality.
This is obviously music to my ears. I'd love to know more about your experience as an intern. I know you probably have done internships. You certainly have worked with interns in the past. How has been that experience in guiding and also for yourself exploring and going from concept or theory into practice?
So I want to share two experiences. One, when I was an intern, I have one of the things that I have always tried to do is, even since I was about in 4th semester in college, I decided I wanted to work and study, not just study. And I started the first semesters I worked on my cards and I studied, but then I became a monitor in the university. And I want to share the story because I stumbled into it. Again, I have been very lucky that I have been in the right place at the right time with the right mindset to stumble into great opportunities. So the university had bought a new CNC machine for bending tubes. EAFIT had bought it, and it was vacation. And I decided I wanted to see how that machine worked. So I went on vacation to the lab, and there was a Chinese representative from the company that Taiwanese actually representative from the company that made the machine, training the operators and the professors and everyone there. And I asked the professor, can I join this course? Can I learn how to use the machine? They're like, sure, you can learn. So I was part of the course, 2 weeks of work. And then at the end, they told me, do you want to be the monitor for this machine? Like, you already know how to use it. We would have to train another monitor anywhere else. And I learned how, so the next semester I was hired by the university to be the monitor in charge of the machine. I was probably paid 10 times what other monitors were paid in the university at the time, just because I stumbled into it. And I've always found that working while I study has helped me improve my academic performance, because you think you're busy in school until you graduate and you realize that was the golden age. So I have been very lucky to be able to keep myself busy with work and school throughout my career. And that I think was my biggest internship experience. Then when I was in France, the first thing I got there to do was an internship. I was very lucky to be forced to be hired, forced to take an internship in Procter & Gamble, because they went to the school and they made everybody take a test, and I apparently did well in that test, but I wanted to work with cars. So I refused an offer from Procter & Gamble because there was an option in Renault. So I refused the option from Procter & Gamble. And the recruitment person in Procter & Gamble, which I am forever thankful to her, she told me, what does your internship need to look like so you can work with us? So I told her, I want to develop new systems. I want to be in design and development rather than production. I put a list of requests, and she came back to me and said, okay, I meet all your requests. Now you can work with us. And I couldn't say no. But that was also, I stumbled into Procter & Gamble, and what I know about manufacturing and production, I learned from them. And then when we started taking interns, it's very interesting because interns learn a lot from you, but if you have your eyes open, you learn a lot from them as well. And one I have with one intern, Avinav, I remember we had him at C2R, and I learned a great lesson from Avinav, because all my life I have been very curious, academic. I research academic papers in every topic that I get curious about, and I'm obsessive. I dive deeply into every topic, and I try to train the engineers and the interns who work with me to become obsessed about getting depth on the problems they are facing. And Davinav, we were designing a part for a rally car as a project from a customer we had in the company. So this was a really cool project, and we were designing the part for the rally car. And Avinav is like, okay, so I think it was the loads on the part. And so Avinav told me, what loads should I use? And I went back, I think I'm asking, I ask you the same questions. What loads should you use? You should research and find the appropriate loads. I was expecting him to come back to me with papers or research. And what he did was he posted on a forum for engineering, and a Ford engineer gave him the answer. And that taught me that sometimes to get the answers, you just ask. You don't always have to do the research yourself. And in the academic world, because everything needs to be very well justified and very well supported, you're always forced to go into what's written and the formal research, and you have to do the research. But in the real world, you can just ask someone who knows, and they can give you the solution just as well. And because it wasn't a project that was competitive with Ford, just how enough just got the answer from a Ford engineer. And that was that's a very interesting anecdote of something that I learned a lot from an intern.
Thanks a lot for sharing. It requires also to be humble, to also accept that you can learn from anybody. So we love that. It's a constant learning process, this life, no matter how much experience you have. Mauricio, you have clearly been the difference, as we call this podcast. What advice do you have for that younger generation who are possibly finishing uni now with an uncertain future?
That's a good one and a tough one. So basically, I would think that the biggest advice I would give to a university student who is finishing right now is that there is no better time to make big gambles on your future than when you are straight out of school. As you start progressing in life, you will start. This is a phrase from the Da Vinci Code, and it says humans run faster to go away from what they fear or to protect what they have than towards getting what they want.
Wow.
So the right out of uni is the moment where you can take the biggest chances. So straight out of uni, I would say dream big, understand that failure is an option, that it's an option that is going to take you forever. But right out of school is where you can take the biggest chances. So I would invite them to be bold, have a purpose to change the world, and take the biggest chances they can think of in terms of making that vision possible. In the short term, if you start a company and you fail, in the short term, it can think like it's a very big failure. But in the big picture, you can always just get a job, and the experiences and the lesson you learned by starting a company or by taking a job in something that you have no idea how to do and just take the gamble, it will always pay off in the long term, because the knowledge acquired by being bold and going off the beaten path, you will get a knowledge base that is impossible to get except following a crazy trajectory.
Mauricio, what resources inspire you? What people do you follow? What podcasts or books have made a great impact in your journey?
Well, that's so I usually read a lot of innovation books. Everything from Singularity University has been something I follow since very early in my career. There is a marketing professor from NYU who's Professor Scott Galloway. I really think he is a great, very insightful person. He understands the world. I try to stay away from a little bit of the mainstream culture and mainstream thinking, because I think mainstream thinking is a lot of hype rather than execution. And the biggest insights in the world come from radical thinkers, not from standards. So if you find someone that usually has a lot of echo, it means that you are not following someone that is radical enough. And that is something that I try to guide my life by. And then honestly, I think the biggest lessons you learn is just from having your eyes and ears open and learning from the people around you. There's so much intelligence and so much collective wisdom around us all the time that we just tune it out in our day-to-day and ignore it. But being able to learn lessons from everyone around, I think, is key.
Brilliant. And I think Joanna's got one more, but the last question from me is, what's next for you? What's next for TECHFIT? What's the future looking like?
So it's an interesting time, because we move very quickly from we're screwed to we're gonna change the world. It's a very
What a dance.
It's a very fine balance, but so one day we're screwed, and the next day we are changing the world. Our end game in TECHFIT is to make surgical treatments and the medical devices that are used in surgical treatments custom to each patient. And because of the 3D printing and mobile 3D planning technologies and everything that we've developed and other people have developed, I think now we are at a point where that is possible. So our goal is to, and that's one of the reasons we moved to the US, to access a more mature venture capital and innovation ecosystem, because our goal is to raise capital and achieve that goal, make surgery custom. We are in the process of structuring, of closing a seed round, which we have raised over the past year in the pandemic, and we have had we have had some success in raising that round, and we are very keen to see what happens next as the pandemic wanes off, and we can focus on getting back to our mission again, and we can wake up every day trying to know that we are just going to change the world, and not that we are between screwed and changing the world. We had, for instance, in March, we had a record month, and then through with the new peak that is coming around the world and the suspension of elective surgery, April is looking difficult. So it's like a roller coaster, but I mean, that's part of life. Life is a roller coaster. People like our ancestors dealt with pandemics before. We are just we're just one more point in the history of mankind, and we will get through this as well.
That's so exciting, and we'll keep following the journey of TECHFIT in the future. But before I let you go, what are those habits that you do to increase your creativity?
Okay, so one of the first thing is that people think working hard is sitting in front of a computer and doing many things and making many Excel sheets and making many PowerPoint presentations and being in a lot of meetings. Always leave time to think, because when you're a knowledge worker, thinking is also working. So maybe you're out taking a walk, but you're thinking and you're finding solutions to things. So that my main habit is always leave time to think. Don't fill your schedule. That is very important. Another habit is read a lot. I have been moving from books to audiobooks, just because as days get busier, I can always use the time when I'm driving to work, or the time when I'm doing something that doesn't require a lot of concentration, that is mechanical, to read. So read a lot. I read 2 or 3 books a month. And I think the biggest one is just have time to try new stuff. Leave time in your day to try new stuff. We usually try to focus our energy in doing what works today, and forcing ourselves to test different things, even if it's personal things like jumping off a plane with a parachute and trying all of those things. It creates the mindset.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mauricio. It's been super inspirational. Yes, we look forward to know more about you, your company in the future. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Joa. Thank you for the invitation. I hope I can touch people through Joanna. You can get my contact information. If anyone wants to reach out, wants to have a chat, wants to learn more about the companies, I'm always available. Thank you so much, Paul, for your questions. Really, you guys really made me go deep into my thoughts. So it was a very good conversation, and I hope it helps create a new species of engineers that are ready to challenge to take on the challenges that in the world, which are growing exponentially. So we need exponential thinking to solve exponential problems.
Excellent. So that was our interview with Mauricio Toro. Amazing interview. I really enjoyed. It was really, really nice to hear him say that we are in the business of helping people be healthy and not to profit from their illness. And it's a lot about social capitalism behind that statement. Plus, also realizing that we can all have the power of potentially changing the world, like really incredible people. He's a normal human being with great ideas and initiative. So I hope we all are inspired, because I am. What about you?
Definitely, yeah. The talk of collaboration, like everything he said about like moving his business into Florida, and just excellent, excellent insight from him. And even off camera, I actually brought up the Formula One stuff, and he was telling us some of the backstory of it. He said there's just as much drama in F2 and F3 as there is in F1. So every piece of money he had, or every bit of money the teams had, all went into the team. So it's just amazing hearing from a really, really talented engineer.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we can have an F1. We are speaking a lot about F1. We can have an F1 guest here.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we'll get. What's the Colombian guy's name?
Juan Pablo Montoya. Back in the days of Schumacher, so I don't know if people remember him, but I do. I was a little girl and cheering for him.
That's excellent. Ireland has never had an F1 person, but that's for another day. Anyway, that's it, Joanna. It was a pleasure. It was great. Thanks a million for listening to everybody.
Excellent. So you can reach us out how to be the difference at theinternGroup.com or on social media at the Intern Group. And see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time. Thanks, Mauricio. Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you, Paul. Bye.